Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you're listening, wherever you're listening. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. Long time no see. The tripod is back. I thought Jamal was going to have a beard because in the text earlier, he said, yes, we finally got the bearded bandits, but he surprised us with a bare face. So
there you go.
Two-thirds of the bearded bandit is back. Also, remember, Salute to Troy is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online. Go to betonline.ag where the game starts. Get all your updates, minute, odds, stats, and game day parlays. Also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Go to Underdog Fantasy app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Put in promo code USCLAFB and get $100 bonus. Welcome back, gentlemen. Happy New Year. The three of us haven't been together in a good while. I hope everybody enjoyed. Ryan, long time no see. How are you doing, buddy?
What's up? I feel like it's been forever since I've been on with you guys. So, Happy New Year. Hope the holidays were good. Everything's good. Happy to be on and got some good USC news to talk about. And, as with this new college football, there truly is no offseason. I know, Coach, you say you don't like the offseason, but there is no offseason now. I mean, we basically have June. That's about it. June is like the only offseason month with everything going on. But yeah, good seeing you guys. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. I am doing well. Madman, long time no talk.
Long time no talk, Coach.
How's everything going today, Madman?
Doing well. Excited to get into it. It's so funny. Every time we talk like on air and then like 7 things happen and then, there's always something going on with SC, man. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So excited to get into it with you guys. The 5 of us, we're 3 USC Trojans, a Louisville Cardinal, and a Georgia Bulldog here, so the 5 of us.
Yeah.
I missed that joke.
It's our background.
Well, who's the player below you right now, Coach?
Oh, I got you.
Who's the player to the right of me and below Ryan?
I guess we should change that.
Need to update that.
I guess we should change that, definitely. Yeah, busy week. Transfer portal got booming. We were happy about Pregnon, and then next thing you know, 24 hours later, that popped off. We'll get into that in a little bit. But we'll start off with transfer portal. SC's active in the transfer portal. They just got an interior. Not just got, but this past, I guess, over the past 4 days, because we last talked on Thursday, we posted on Friday. They got an interior defensive lineman, DJ Wingfield from Purdue. He's an interior guy. Makes sense because they needed to replace the center. I don't know if he's a center for sure, but Big Ten experience, that's what matters. Big body guy. I'm a little worried because of his track line, but he does have playing experience. We do need to get better on the line. This does give experience to us on the O-line, but the one thing that worries me a little bit is now we're piecemealing the offensive line together and we are afraid of the chemistry. That's the con. The pro is we got somebody who's played before, and I know we were a little bit worried because we were going to have to play guys that haven't had the game record experience, and we were losing guys, and of course we lost Pregnon. So I think this works very well. And when I saw this, I was thinking, but I have to see it. I wonder how athletic I want to say Aloy Nua, but that's not his name. The kid from Grant. Is it Aloy Nua? The guard.
Yeah.
Alani Noah. Yep.
Alani Noah. Right. Yep. I wonder how athletic he is because I wouldn't be afraid of bumping him out and putting him at right guard and playing that play side guard. But Jada Mayava is left-handed, so he'll have to play left guard. Everything switches up now. So I wonder how
he's right-handed.
Oh, he's right-handed. I'm sorry. So if he is right-handed, then putting him at the right guard, and I wonder if he's athletic enough to do that. And I mean, he's a front side. He'd be a mauler guy. I wouldn't be afraid to experiment on that, and that gives you the reps and the game experience.
You're saying, sorry, not to cut you off. Are you saying Noah at right guard or this new guy, Wingfield?
Put Wingfield at guard. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I confuse you. What I'm saying is to replace Pregnon. Let's start from the beginning. I apologize. Move Elijah Paige to left. Move Elijah Paige to left tackle. Right. Put Paige at left tackle.
The Paige is left tackle right
now.
Paige
is left tackle. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, guys.
I'll just tell you this: Pregnon was left guard.
Yeah.
Noah was already right guard. So
Monheim was the center. Yeah,
we're missing left guard, center, right.
And
tackle.
Noah was right guard, and then Murphy was right tackle. Yeah.
Move Nua out to right tackle and put this guy at guard, right? So then that way you're replacing Pregnon with somebody who has experience, and I'm not afraid to experience with Nua at tackle if he's athletic enough. I haven't watched enough film on him to see if he's athletic enough, but he has a whole full season. He had a half a season behind him the year before. He has enough games to probably do it, and playing experience won't work. I'm not afraid to experiment that. Now that we got that all sorted out, that's how I feel about it. But I do like the fact that we went and got experienced old lineman. Only thing is, I don't like the fact that the chemistry might not be completely there. Madman, how do you feel about this get? Sorry for completely messing that up, guys, but hopefully you guys' minds are right now.
No, Coach. I mean, look, it's another body. I mean, there's a couple things to like here, and you mentioned it. One is Big Ten playing experience, obviously at Purdue. I think second, you got to like the size at 6'4", 315. So, you're building some nice beef there up front. And I think the third is local kid, from Los Angeles. So opportunity to come back and play at home. So I think that there's a lot to be excited about there. I think the questions are just sort of level of effectiveness. He had some up and down games. Purdue was 1-11 this year. So there was a lot of kind of down games. But there were some key matchups against, I would say, the elite of the Big Ten, where Purdue's line overall struggled, and Wingfield was a part of that struggle. So, exactly what are the level of expectations of Wingfield? Now, this is where Henson has to sort of get into the shop and really sort of mold Wingfield into a player of the caliber of what Pregnon was prior to his departure. And so we have to see, is Wingfield going to be an anchor of this offensive line? Is he going to be a bona fide starter of this offensive line? Is he just going to be a rotational piece of this offensive line? So I think that remains to be seen, but I think more work to be done here moving forward, particularly on this O-line. Now you're sort of just with the two starters coming back, so it really feels like things are a little bare. Obviously, Ryan, I know you've talked at length about the 9 offensive line recruits over the last 2 recruiting cycles, but getting those guys to sort of emerge and mature, I think, is going to be a key offseason priority here. So some to like, some questions there. I don't anticipate Wingfield being the savior of the offensive line, but a nice piece to have, and another person that's going to kind of compete for a starting spot, and we'll see where it lands.
Ryan, what do you got for it?
Yeah, I don't need to add much more. I think the positive were the size and the locale. He started his career at New Mexico before going to Purdue and then transferring here. So they needed bodies. I mean, that was first and foremost. They needed bodies, needed some experience there, because as Jamal just said, I do like the youth and the depth, but going into next year with 3 new starters, and if 3 of those new starters have never been starters, that's a high risk in a must-win season for Lincoln Riley. So you get a guy that at least has been there, done that, played in the Big Ten, played in big games, big stadiums, big weather against big defensive lines. So I think that's good. And like I said in his picture, the guy looks like he's like 40, so he's lived some life. Get that in there and whatnot. So I definitely, we'll see what happens, Coach. I think to your point, I think Noah is more suited at guard just with his size. I don't think he's quick enough to be on the right tackle. Never know. But I do think what they have in Tobias Raymond, or I always say his last name wrong, Justin Trunow, the true freshman out of Huntington Beach. A lot of good stuff there. Obviously, he would be a first-time starter, but I think those are your future kind of tackles, and they can keep Noah at guard, and then we'll see if Winfield plays guard or slides in at center, or if Killian O'Connor, or if they end up going and get another center. The last thing I'll say is I know this weekend, one guy that I like that just transferred from Syracuse, Jean-Ray Reed, was a 2-year starter at Syracuse, a lot of snaps, and he was just visiting on campus this weekend. So that'd be a name to watch that could come in and start at center right away also.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. And it's so weird because this position is the position that has the most depth. And when you talk about depth, like you said, man, over the past 2 years, they recruited 9 people. They only lost 2 out of those 9 people. So now, they have 7. They have the most depth, but then it comes down to playing experience. And, the pressure that's on this season, right, it's all or nothing. So, you have to make the right moves. You have to put the right moves in perspective. So, I'm interested to see what they do. That's a good thing with spring ball. We kind of see what direction they'll go in the spring ball. We'll kind of see the direction they're going in camp. But that's just one position you really don't want to play with, right? And you got to get it right. And like the year before, in the beginning of the season, when they were flipping people around and trying to figure it out, like this is the time you got to get it figured out, or it's not going to look very. It's going to look very grim and bleak for the Trojans this year, especially kind of with their quarterback situation. You guys got anything else on that before we move on?
The only thing I'll add is I think this is where the schedule in 2025, at least on paper, is very beneficial for USC. Because if you look at who the stalwarts of this offensive line were prior to, this weekend in Paige and Pregnon, both those guys, it took them a while to find their stride, to develop, to mold. Paige, I think, made a huge turn, really, I would say, after about game 4, game 5. Coach, you and I talked about this, that Michigan game was sort of trial by fire. It was on-the-job training. It was an education in and of itself. And Pregnon, if you look at the Pregnon from game 1 to the Pregnon of the bowl game, that was a significant leap. And I think around game 6, 7 is when Pregnon really matured. So, the benefit of having 2 non-Power 4 teams, a 1-11 Purdue, and a pretty mediocre Michigan State team where Jonathan Smith is going to be in year 2 to start September, I think will give a lot of these guys, like we're talking about, an opportunity to sort of mold and shape into very credible offensive linemen once you sort of get into the meat of the Big Ten season. So another reason why, even though there's some development that needs to take place here with this offensive line, the way the schedule is breaking, it's feeling a little bit, guys, like, the 23 season. Remember when those first 6 games were really easy and then the back 6 got really, really hard. I don't think there's a back 6 that was as hard as the back 6 of 23, but it does ramp up. So it gives these guys an opportunity to develop. All the more reason why, fewer excuses and a gotta have it 2025. But I think that's the schedule lends itself nicely to development on the offensive line.
They play 3 that matter in the right spots. They play Michigan early, then they play Oregon in the middle, and then they play Notre Dame. Like, they're playing them in the right spots, I think. Like, they got fluff, game, fluff, game, fluff, game, like that. So, here, I kind of agree with you on that one. Moving on. So, then we'll stay in the transfer portal. I'm going to drop some names for you. Travis Dye, Austin Jones, Woody Marks, and I can't remember the guy's name before Woody Marks. It's just slipping my mind. I don't know what's happening with me today.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Marshawn Lloyd. There you go. Marshawn Lloyd. What do they all have in common? Transfer running backs. Woody Marks being the best that me and Madman made, and I'm pretty sure he can agree to that.
I still don't agree, but we could. That's a conversation for a different day.
But big commitment in the backfield. They got Wayman Jordan out of Hutchinson Community College, the top JUCO recruit to come to SC this year. So this guy is basically a freshman now, right? So this is a freshman.
Who knows these new rules?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Right? So this guy's basically a freshman now, and so you have him for 4 years. Now, the thing I do like about it is the fact that maybe we get a little bit of thunder and lightning out of this thing, right? We get Big Jones, who's wearing number 21. We won't call him Lindale Jr. yet. We got to see what he has, but he had a pretty impressive Vegas Bowl. But I mean, this is the guy that fits Lincoln Riley's offense, right? You got to be able to run the pass. The key factor is you need a running back that could go in the pass game. This guy could do the pass game. He has a little burst to him. I like how shifty he is, but I'm interested to see what happens in the run game this year. I think last year was the year where Lincoln Riley needed to rely on the run, and I think he really didn't want to do it, and just stubbornness. But I mean, this is another big get, and we could honestly say the position that Lincoln Riley has been successful at with transfers in his first 3 years has been running back. He has yet to miss running back. His first 2 years, he had Travis Dye and Austin Jones. Second year, Marshawn Lloyd, and then last year he had Woody Marks. So, I mean, and now we got a guy that's we think has 4 years or however this new thing is working out. But if this guy follows the trend in that position, this guy is going to be trending up. So there'll be something worth seeing. Ryan, what do you got on Wayman?
Yeah, as a player, I think it's a great get. It shows a lot of great talent and stuff on film, and obviously you get that experience coming from JUCO, but still having the eligibility of whatever it is. It's at least 2 years, I think. So some good eligibility there. It's so hard with roster building now, and I don't know how much you guys talked over the last few weeks when I wasn't on, but it's like it's so hard because you never know if you add someone, if that's going to cause someone to leave. And you see the running backs on the roster, and you have obviously Brian Jackson, who I think is the future of this program, at least in terms of that thumper. And then they still have Amarion Peterson on the roster, and then they just recruited 2 guys in this 25 class as well. So, and they got Eli Sanders already in the transfer portal from New Mexico. So obviously that's now a pretty crowded room, and I love the addition, but is it an addition by subtraction? Is someone leaving? That's always the thing you got to think about. But as a program, you also know that there's, and I don't want to say this harshly, but you also know there's no loyalty on the player side either. So you have to say, is this guy right for our program? And if it causes someone to leave, as long as we think this guy's right, then that works for us. So not saying I'm hearing anything, nothing like that, but that's just the one thing you think about when you start getting these rooms getting more and more crowded is, does that mean someone's leaving? But as a player, I think it's a good get. He's a great player, add a lot. I think, as you mentioned, he'll complement Jackson really well. Eli Sanders, to me, was like the true complement. Like, he's more of the smaller speed guy than Jackson's the big guy. But I think this guy also brings a nice complement to that backfield. So we'll see how it shakes out. But just the pure player, I think it's a great addition.
Man, what you got on it?
Yeah, no, I think Ryan hit on some really important points. I think you sort of, it's the difference between, I think, to what Ryan is saying, is looking at it in isolation versus looking at it in totality. Sort of looking at it in isolation, it's a really good get. I mean, Wayman Jordan, 5'10", 205. He was, north of 1,600 yards, 20 touchdowns in JUCO, got a lot of lather, someone that, can get the ball a lot in a game and get stronger as the game goes on. All really nice things. But when you look at it in totality, it is a little bit perplexing because now you've got Jordan with experience, to Ryan's point, you've got Sanders, and now you got Brian Jackson. And if one thing we've seen over the last 3 years is that Lincoln Riley likes one back. He's a feature back kind of guy. And, whether that was Travis Dye, whether that was Lloyd, whether that was Woody Marks, the usage rate of all 3 of those guys was very, very high. I mean, Woody Marks had a great season. We're complimenting him in a significant way, all rightfully so, but his usage rate was one of the reasons why Joyner left, right? And so the question for me becomes, is Jordan just someone that's coming in to really compete for this feature back spot with Sanders and with Brian Jackson, and then in April, one of these 3 guys or 2 of these 3 guys is potentially going to enter into the portal in that 10-day period? Or is Lincoln Riley potentially thinking about the running game differently in 2025? Is he going to truly run more of a 2-back set? And because the whole premises of thunder and lightning is that, you have a 1-2 punch. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see how Lincoln Riley thinks about this. Is this purely, hey, let's get as many guys as we can to have the level of competition as high as possible and best man wins? And it's sort of a Darwinism, kind of the survival of the fittest that takes place? Or is he saying, look, I think I'm going to schematically change a bit in terms of my offensive philosophy. I've gone feature back 3 years in a row at SC. Now I want to go more 2-back system, in which case this would make a little bit more sense. So I think that's something to watch out for, particularly as we get into spring practice and start seeing Lincoln Riley's mindset.
Yeah, that was my thought too. Like, is he adapting Big Ten and he's going to run the ball more? Like, you know what I mean? So he needs 3 backs now, and 2 of them carry the load, and then that third one is kind of a filler. And that's what it looks like he's going. But then again, with this guy, you never know. You know what I mean? Like, so you never know. So we just have to figure it out from there. But I will say this. I sat in a room with the top running backs in California and one of the top running backs out of Texas, and only one left. Different time, though. I will say that, different time. But, and I mean, what was it? Stephon Johnson, CJ Gable, Alan Bradford, Mark Tyler, Emmanuel Moody. I feel like I'm missing one. And our freshman year with Stephon and CJ and Alan, the feature back was Chauncey Washington. You know what I mean? And those other guys were fillers. And then after Chauncey left, it was like, all right, it's survival, like you said, survival of the fittest. And those guys stayed and compete. I will tell you that. But it's interesting to see how that happens now that the times has changed. So what's going to happen? Are these guys going to want to stay and compete? Or will it be like, you know what? I'm going to go find my love somewhere else. And I can easily get in the portal and find something else. So that's really what I'm interested to see and what happens with the full room like this. So all we could do is wait. You guys got anything before we move on to the big story of the transfer portal?
No, I mean, the only thing I'd add, it seems like you almost have to have like a different philosophy now in roster construction. You kind of choose, and I think it's still different year to year based on obviously the player and the person, but you kind of have to choose specific positions or players. You're like, all right, we're all in on developing this position. Like this is obviously quarterbacks one, others that we are going to recruit and develop. And you kind of just, because of NIL and because of actually having like a salary in a way, you basically say, okay, these other positions, we're just going to stack with talent and let the guys leave if they want to leave. And we're just going to replenish it every single year in the portal because we can't bank on developing it, not knowing if they're actually going to stay and develop. So like we have to be all push our chips all in on certain guys to develop, and the rest just kind of like, hey, we're just going to add as much talent as we can, and whoever leaves, and we just have to live with it. It's just like it's this new philosophy almost. It's crazy.
That's true. No contracts. I will say this when we roll on to the next one. Great phrase. I mean, if you're gonna gamble, you better win, right? And Maeva gambled, and Lincoln Riley hinged his bet, and he went and got another quarterback, right? So now we're interested to see what's going to happen with the 10-day window, like you mentioned earlier, Jamal. So Trojans went out and they signed Sam Hurd, right? And to me, this signing seems like, all right, there's a bunch of rumors of Maeva going out. He got a bunch of money offered to him from Miami. Miami's in need of a quarterback apparently right now. What's going to happen before the portal closes? It seems like Maeva's entertaining it. We got to go hinge our bet. We got to protect ourselves. Let's go get Sam Hurd. Maeva doesn't do it. And they're like, Sam Hurd's like, I want to come. And so now we got Sam Hurd in the portal. It looks like we're going into the spring with a quarterback competition. And I will say this, and I'll put it on record. I think these are both two equally matched quarterbacks. I don't think one's talent is higher than the other. Okay, you may say Maeva runs the ball. That's fine. But when you really look at it, they have about the same grade. They're about the same quarterback. They're about the same threat. There's nothing that stands out that will make one better than the other, to me, in my evaluation. So it's really interesting to see what happens here at the end of spring with this signing of Sam Hurd coming in. Is he still going to be there? Is Maeva still going to be there? What's going to happen with this move? But now we have a legit competition in the Lincoln Riley era, which I don't think we've seen so far to date. But like I said before, with this new era, are they going to stay? Is one going to stay, or is one going to leave, and whoever stays is going to be the starting quarterback? Man, what do you got on the Sam Hurd signing?
Yeah, Coach, I sort of see it a little bit differently. I think the Sam Hurd signing is more kind of a depth piece. I think you need to sort of have three quarterbacks in your room, barring catastrophe. You need to sort of be in a position to be able to go three deep at that, most critical of positions. I think it's sort of the Jake Jensen sort of slot. Is Hurd. Hurd has a ton of pedigree. I mean, he's the son of Brock Hurd, great Washington quarterback of the 90s and the 2000s. He was 2 years at Washington, 21 and 22. Then 23, he was at Cal Poly. Then this past year, he was at Utah. Didn't see the field. So to me, this is kind of a high IQ kid that is a depth piece. I don't necessarily see Hurd as someone that's going to come in there and push Maeva in any sort of significant way. I think, to your point, Coach, I think the quarterback competition is truthfully going to be between Maeva and Longstreet. That's the competition. And I think this is in an ideal world here. I think Maeva would be the starter. Longstreet's got the clipboard and is ready as the future of the program. And then Hurd is your emergency policy in the event, something goes really wrong from an injury perspective and whatnot. So I think that's how I see this sort of slotting in. I'm fascinated to see what the learning curve of Longstreet is going to be, because I think if anyone's going to push Maeva this spring, it'll be Longstreet more than Heward. But at the same time, we've talked about this. I don't think any healthy program should be relying on a true freshman quarterback. So in an ideal world, you would want Longstreet to sit for a year. I don't think redshirting matters as much anymore, to be honest with you, just given, hopping around with opportunity. So even if Longstreet gets 5 or 6 games of mop-up duty, potentially in 25, I think that's a good thing for 26 moving forward. So I see Heward as QB2 if we really want to, potentially even redshirt Longstreet or really kind of have him learn through the sideline, or, QB3. But I don't quite see this as, some head-to-head QB competition with Maeva. I think this is, for better or for worse, if anything, this signing suggests to me that Lincoln Riley's kind of going in with Maeva. He's going to have his make it or break it year 4 with Jaden Maeva. Win, lose, or draw, ride or die. It's going to be Maeva's team in 25.
Ryan, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, there's obviously, he's a 5-star recruit originally, which I think gives you like, oh, there's maybe something there that just hasn't been brought out. Which if anyone I think can bring it out, it's here at SC with Lincoln Riley. But I think at the surface level and even deeper, just based on what he's gone through in his career, this is a depth piece brought in. I mean, they said all along they were going to bring in another QB for depth. Lincoln Riley said multiple times, Maeva is kind of the guy. Obviously, that can change, but he's kind of pushed his chips on that. I know based on conversations that we've heard about with NIL and negotiation, that was a big thing with Maeva's camp, is he needs to be kind of given that maybe not guarantee, but that like, hey, you're the guy. You're not going to go sign some big name that we're going to have to compete with. So to me, this is just adding. They needed to add a third QB. They needed someone that had some experience and some pedigree, and obviously he's Luke Heward's nephew, so that helps too, being the QB coach, and this is his nephew. So, I think it's a good signing. It's a good depth because of the pedigree, but I don't think it's anything more than that personally.
I got you. I don't know. I just
could be.
You know what I mean? Like it's just what I was going to say was, there is one freshman quarterback that I think if he would have played the whole year, he would have been really good, and that's Gunner from Georgia. That
Gunner Stockton.
That's
Coach's boy, man. He's loving tough.
That dude's going to be
Stockton.
scary good. That dude's going to be good. I mean, I just from what I saw, he
any quarterback
guy, man. That guy 86 on Georgia, dude. That guy, that was a tough night for him, man. He was blocking balls with his face. It's like if he catches 2 balls that hit him in the face, Georgia might still be playing right now.
Yeah, no.
The fact that Michael Jackson did not get any play at Georgia is shocking to me. With the lack of pass catchers they have, and he couldn't get on the field. Obviously,
I saw something on the interwebs that was saying maybe Michael Jackson could come back to SC.
I think he may have actually just either signed somewhere or he's predicted. I saw.
I got you.
I'll look while you're talking.
No, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I will tell you this, and we'll probably talk about it more. And I might be the one that's just out there. I don't feel confident in the quarterback position going into this season. And the only thing that saves us is our schedule. But there's 3 games that really matter on the schedule that determines how good we're going to be and where we're going to be. So I don't know. I just need to see something to change. I just don't feel extremely confident. Like, I don't feel like we're walking in and we're like, we got a guy right now. I feel like we got a guy that's a project that still needs a bunch of work. And in today's game, you just can't do it. And Ryan, you said this in the past, like most teams really only have 2 quarterbacks. They have their guy and they have the next guy. And so this third one, to me, it feels like, all right, you need to bring somebody in to put the heat on them. So that's just how I see it. I could be 100% wrong, and I could just sound like a hater, but that's just what I'm seeing. You guys got anything on that?
I don't think you're alone.
Go for it. Right.
I was just saying, I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people are mixed. I think there's people that are all really high on Maeva and think that the future's bright, and a lot of people that don't and wanted to go a different direction altogether. So, I'm kind of in the camp. I'm in the middle. Like, I saw stuff where I was like, damn, like, look at that throw, look at that arm talent. Like, but then you see stuff of him just like staring down receivers, not being able to read a defense. having happy feet in the pocket, and you're like, okay, well, that's not going to win you multiple games down the stretch in crunch time. So definitely needs to improve. I personally think he can get to that spot. I think that the talent's there, but he's not there yet. So to your point, I think that, but I mean, this might be what we're rolling with. So
yeah, no, I think just to add to that, I agree. I think, Coach, you're right. This version of Maeva, the Maeva that we know of today, right now, I don't think he's good enough to get SC into the playoff. The question now is, can he evolve over the next 8 months with the tutelage of the quarterback guru to sort of get this team there? But I think, having said that, I don't know if Heward is the guy that's going to push him. If anyone's going to push him, it'll be Longstreet. But it's a tall order. I mean, for as great as Matt Barkley was, and as great a true freshman year as Matt Barkley had in 2009, that was still a 5-loss team, at the end of the day. And you saw it with Raiola this year. You saw it with Iamaleava at Tennessee. The true freshmen kind of hit the wall, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's a big jump to sort of ask. So I think, for better or for worse, and in many ways, I think it's fitting, because if Lincoln Riley can develop Jaden Maeva into a place that gets SC into the playoff, it almost reconfirms Lincoln Riley as head coaching material moving forward, where he's kind of revealed his core competency, that he still has it. And if Lincoln Riley can't take Jaden Maeva to the Jaden Maeva of December 2024 into a version of 2025 that brings SC to the playoff, then I think it's very fair to say that, look, Lincoln Riley probably shouldn't be the coach at USC moving forward. So the fact that the final exam of his tenure at USC comes down to his ability and the degree to which he develops Jaden Maeva, I think is very fitting and appropriate. And I think that's probably where you want to be, because that's going to get you the truest signal about whether or not Lincoln Riley is the true long-term solution at head coach of the USC Trojans.
Yep. Let's move on. I mean, good conversation. That was a really good conversation. Good job, guys. We get a gold star for that section. That's right there. If you guys go to LAFDnetwork.com and then you click on USC, you go to articles. Our man Ryan Dye wrote a great article this week. This week, they plan on announcing a new hire for the general manager. That's the expectation, correct, Ryan?
2 or 3 weeks, right? Is that right?
I think, yeah.
A couple of weeks. Okay, so they're in the process of interviewing, and then we should have a general manager. Great article wrote it. They got top 5 candidates. So I figured we go through these top 5 candidates that we have on the article. We'll post the article on YouTube, so you can click on it and go look at it. I like it. The first guy that we have on there, and I think this is the guy that should do it. I don't know, just my opinion.
Real quick, Coach.
Yes.
Before we talk, guys, and that list is just NFL guys. Just I'll precursor that. So there's probably college names out there too, which we can maybe talk about. But
yeah,
I'd love to get your guys' just thoughts on the news of. I mean, I think people have been like crying for this forever for them to hire a true GM. Dave Emmerich is the acting GM, but I mean, he's an old school college player personnel guy. So I mean, he just honestly, whether people want to blame him or not, he just wasn't like meant to do that job. He never did it before, this new world of GM. So I guess first, before we dive into, just like, what's your guys' thoughts on like the fact that USC is finally making this step of hiring a true like modern college football GM? Jamal, you can start.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's what did LeBron say when he won the championship against the Thunder with the Heat in 2012 and they gave him the trophy? It's about damn time, and so I think this is a step in the right direction. It's necessary, just given, the nature of this sport that we're in. You've got kind of the head coach now who's more of a CEO. You've got your coordinators who are going to be sort of in the schematics. And then you need a general manager that's, whole and soul job is managing NIL, managing contracts, and moving forward. So I think an acknowledgement to do that, I think, is great. A couple of things that come to mind. The timing is a little odd. I mean, you sort of always want to do it as soon as possible, but it feels like the cement is kind of hardened on this roster for 25. So when you're talking about kind of a make it or break it year for Riley, the fact that the GM's coming in now, I don't know how much influence the GM is going to have specifically for the 2025 season, but certainly moving forward and kind of being set up for success, I think is really important. And I think the other piece, Ryan, and I believe, Ryan Kartje of the LA Times really sort of reported on this, of what now becomes the dynamic between head coach and general manager in a college program. The head coach is so used to running all aspects of a college program the way he wants to. How does that dynamic play a role? I think it was very interesting. Ryan Kartje reported about SC trying to go after Courtney Morgan, right? Ryan, last summer, who ultimately was the chief of staff and the general manager of Alabama. SC reportedly gave him a $150,000 raise, from what Alabama's best offer was. SC was ready to give him $1 million. The highest Alabama was going to go was $850K, and both of those numbers were significantly more than what he was getting paid at Alabama at the time. And he ultimately said no. He said no to $150,000 more, to the opportunity to being in Los Angeles, to the opportunity to sort of revive a West Coast power. And his rationale was, I have a really good working relationship with Calen DeBoer. I was at Washington with him. I don't know what the dynamic between me and Lincoln Riley is going to be. And so I think it's going to be really interesting moving forward that this GM is going to need to have a really nice rapport with Riley, or vice versa. They're going to really have to be lockstep and in unison. And I think, how much does Lincoln Riley open up his inner circle, to me, I think is going to be really big. Because Emmerich, for all his faults in this particular job, he was off of that Mike Leach tree. He was, working with Mike Leach for a number of years, all these air raid guys together. So there was sort of a trust element that Lincoln Riley had with Emmerich. Whether the competence was there in this particular role, I think we all agree it just wasn't the role he was suited for. But is Lincoln Riley going to sort of open up and trust someone from outside his inner circle, and also be comfortable with delegating some power, delegating some authority, and being collaborative? Because, to this point, Lincoln Riley has had keys to the entire football program, carte blanche. And so how that dynamic is going to play out moving forward, to me, is going to be fascinating. And it'll be very telling who SC ends up picking, and how, to what degree Jen Cohen is operating with autonomy, and to what degree Jen Cohen is thinking about Lincoln Riley just in terms of 2025, and what degree Jen Cohen is thinking about Lincoln Riley as the long-term coach of USC. So really fascinating how these next few weeks will play out.
Man, let me ask you this question, because you might know the answer to this. How close are they to hiring a new president?
So, good question, Coach. The search committee has begun, and, obviously, Folt wraps up here in May. And so the question right now, they're moving forward with the search committee. Is there the likelihood is there probably be an interim president for 1 year potentially, and then the new president comes in 26.
With that being said, that might save Riley for a year. Might. And we've seen it happen before with Hilton. They had no president, and so that might save Riley. I will say this. There's two people in the college world that was pretty much saying you need to adapt to what's going on, or they need to go ahead and get out of the game. One of them, we all know, Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney all of a sudden came out and said, I need to hit the transfer portal. I need to figure out this NIL thing. Lincoln Riley, all of a sudden, I need to hire a GM. To me, and my experience, and from what I've known, you have a conversation with the AD at the end of the year. No matter if you won the national championship, no matter if you go 1-11, you have a conversation with the AD. I think this was forced. I think Dabo was forced to enter the portal and do this whole thing. I think they finally told Dabo, like, your way's not working. We have to do it this way now. I think Lincoln Riley was forced, like, look, we had a GM at Washington. We need a GM here. We're going to hire a GM. We're going to figure out a GM to do it. People might have said there was a search. When he tried to offer Courtney Morgan, but you offer Courtney Morgan, he said no, you had no backup plan. To me, that was just a big name splash trying to hire, just to try to show that he's trying to do the right thing. If Courtney Morgan says no, who's your next guy? If that guy says no, who's your next guy? You really didn't want a GM. Now I think he's being forced to have a GM. You need a GM. This is how the game works. The guy you have now is not working. This is what you need to do. And I think that's where we are in this situation. And now they're hiring one. Question is, who's the hire going to be, and how good is this hire going to be? And is it going to be a hire like we were with D'Anton Lynn, where we're like, yeah, that's a really good hire, or is it going to be one of those where we're like, why did he do that? Like, what made him do that? So that's kind of where I am with this situation. And it's 50-50 with this guy. This guy could hire somebody and make us be like, why? Or he could hire somebody and be like, okay, like maybe he is trying to make the right decision. So that's kind of where I stand with this whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You guys are both frozen. I don't know if it's me or not. Oh, there we go. We're back. Okay. I don't know if it's me or what, but all of a sudden my screen was frozen. No, yeah, to me, this is like huge. This was based on the season we've watched, based on all the NIL conversations we've heard in behind the scenes and people I've talked to. And like, this was the most no-brainer thing that needed to happen. Like, for Lincoln Riley, whatever you think about him as a coach, but like, his job will be that much easier just having a competent GM running it like a NFL front office. Like it made no sense to not do this. So again, we'll see what this is a monumental hire. Obviously they got to get it right. But it's good to see it's finally in true motion. And, you know, like you said, they offered Courtney Morgan. And then I did hear that there was some other interviews throughout the season, but nothing crazy, obviously, because then they were in season. So nothing really matriculated. So we'll see. But go ahead, Coach. Take it away.
If it was important, but here's my question. If it was important to him, this hire should have been made a month ago.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, this hire should have been made a month ago. Like, SC has a GM. It should have been made before the bowl game, and it wasn't done. Right? Now we're in, like Jamal said, like, the cement is already set. Right? It's the more the cement dries, the harder it gets, the stronger it gets. The cement is set. So now you're sitting here.
What are you saying? What is that?
Cement. Yeah.
Oh,
I heard. Yeah. I know what Ryan heard too, because that's what I heard first. But
wait a minute. I mean, also true, and that could be still factually accurate. But
right. But yeah, the cement is already set.
Listen,
so
man,
like,
Coach watching too much ESPN today with Joy Taylor. That's what's happening. You know?
Fox. It's Fox. No, but definitely. Like, so why are you waiting until now? These are the things that bother me. Like, your class is already signed. The transfer portal is only going to be open now to the last 4 teams for 5 days. Like, there's still some kids out there, but you still have no GM. Like, you should have been going into portal season with the new guy hired. Like, he's not doing the right things to put himself in the right situation. And so that's what worries me about it. Like, it's kind of like, that's why I say this is forced. Like, Jen is like, no, you're getting a GM. Like, you can hire him, but you're not going into this season without a GM. That's just my rebuttal to that whole thing and my whole take on it.
I agree. Like, it's crazy that it hasn't happened. Like, this isn't even like rational thinking, just trying to like, whatever, just a thought process. I don't even think is the case, but like the only thing I can think of logically is either they've had guys that they've wanted or gals, but they're either still in the college football playoff or in the NFL, and they've talked to them and said, hey, we want to wait till the season's over before we do anything because we're, got a playoff push. And that's like the only thing. Or something as like Emmanuel Pregnon hitting the portal was like the final straw. And then that's when like Jen's like, bro, what are we doing here? Like, or even Lincoln said, finally, like, okay, this is ridiculous now. No, but who knows? But it's happening finally.
All right, let's run through the list real quick and let's get out of here. Top of the list. I like this guy. I think this is who the hire should be. He's coming back home. The only blemish on him is that he's a Mike Bone guy. Mike Bone was the guy that brought him in, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is I read it wrong, right? So Brenden Sosna is kind of, you did that. So Mike Bone didn't bring him in?
Well, I just couldn't remember for sure. I don't know if he was there before.
Yeah,
Bone
it was a Bone hire.
I think it was a Bone hire. Yeah.
Yeah. But while he was there, he was very constructive. He's the one that people are saying he kind of orchestrated this whole Big Ten thing, kind of got going. Like, he was the one in the background. He like pulling the strings, being the puppet master. He's in Washington right now. Look what Washington's doing. You see the connection. Cliff Kingsbury's in Washington as the OC now. Kind of go figure. I think this is the guy that you got to bring in and be able to do it. He has the pro experience now. been in LA. He understands the USC culture. So maybe this will be the guy that flips it and make a change. But if I was to make my hire, put the stamp on him, I'm putting my stamp on Brenden Sosna right off the bat. What do you got, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is like a no-brainer one. I don't know, I haven't heard anything. The relationship ended bad. You know, he was helping hire Lincoln Riley, and then 6 months later, he got hired by Detroit to go with Brad Holmes over there, and took an upgrade over the NFL. So I don't think anything, to my knowledge, ended badly. It was just more of a positional change, and but I mean, he does all the things that you need a college GM to do. I mean, he's like does roster construction, does salary cap management, does overseeing all of football operation. He's the number 2 guy in Washington behind Adam Peters. And obviously we've seen the turnaround in Washington. So I won't get long winded, but to me, this is a no brainer one if they could get him back.
Yeah, I agree. This would be plan A, B, and C, frankly. I mean, this is the guy for all the reasons that Ryan laid out. I won't repeat it. The only question is going to be is, can you sweeten the pot enough for him to come back? Right. Yeah. Because he's such a rising star in football, where had the experience with SC, had the experience with the Detroit Lions, Washington Commanders. Like, he's ready to, ambitious young guy. He was a Forbes 30 under 30 guy, went to Wharton, I believe, undergrad, so he's got his eye on being a president of football operations, being a GM of the NFL here within the next 4 to 5 years. Like, he's looking to sort of be, if not the youngest GM in the NFL, certainly one of the youngest GMs in the NFL. So to go from, like Ryan described, roster construction, personnel management, contracts, strategy, football operations for an NFL team that's doing $250 million a year in terms of salary versus even the best college team, right? I mean, we're projecting an Oregon or a Texas at like $40 million, right? That's a big drop off. So to sweeten the pie for him to be able to take that job, you're going to have to go north of $1 million. You're really going to have to sort of pay him a considerable amount and also kind of give him autonomy, which is going to be kind of interesting, again, how that'll play out with Lincoln Riley. But if you can get him, I think he checks all the boxes of domain knowledge and also an understanding of USC and a familiarity with Lincoln Riley and the ability to build that trust, because he's the one who was part of the team along with Mike Bohn and Rick Caruso to bring Riley in. So, that all the boxes get checked with Brenden Sosna in a way that not all the boxes get checked with anyone else, for that matter.
So to counter that, man, if they do it the correct way, you hire an assistant and you train that assistant up, and then if he does walk, you leave it right where it is. You get what I'm saying? That's ideal if they're able to afford it. You know what I mean? Like, say you're Sosna, right, and I'm your understudy, right, and like when you walk, it's like nothing changes. It's kind of like, all right, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, in a theoretical world, Coach, but usually what happens is, when you walk, you take your people with you, and so the succession plan, that's why succession plans don't, I mean, ask Alabama this year about succession planning, I mean, that's why, guys are who they are, leaders are who they are. So that's the challenge, right, always, is how do you keep it rolling?
Let's ask North Carolina in a couple of years how that succession plan works out. I'm going to jump around on the list. They got a couple other guys here, but we got to drop this name. Legend, has a center on campus. John Makai, not the John Makai that coached, but this is his nephew, grandson, uncle, niece, daughter. Which one is this?
Grandson.
His grandson. So John Makai, I would say 1A, 1B. The reason why I say this, he's been a part of the roster construction in LA, which led to a Super Bowl victory. All those changes that we've seen and made him successful. He works with Les Snead. You see what the Rams are doing. Rams won the West with the roster that isn't. I shouldn't say is bad, but the Rams are winning right now with a roster that is building, and so you can see the foundation. He comes from apparently what they're doing. And with the Rams is becoming a very good organization. So Kroenke is doing something right to make that organization very well and starting to become very competitive, consistently gearing year out and become one of the top organizations. Makai understands what USC is. It's in his blood, lifelong legacy. I mean, if you miss out on Sosna, I would definitely go John Makai. And guess what? He doesn't even have to move a house. He's just changing work location. It's like one of us, just like us. We don't have to move. We just changing work location.
One of us.
What do you think about that, man? What do you think about John McKay?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think this is 1B in a significant way. Again, the passion for USC. Look, guys, I think the passion for USC, the passion for the university, I think in this world of it being so transactional and it's so dollars and cents, wherever you can find people who are genuinely passionate about the place, that is your only hope to be able to build culture and continuity and to be successful in the long term. I mean, if we to kind of take a step back here, if we define this NIL era over the last 3 or 4 years, who are the teams that have been the most successful from a national championship perspective over the last 4 years? It's Georgia, Michigan, and this year, presumably, Ohio State. Kirby's a Georgia alum. Harbaugh was a Michigan alum. And Ryan Day was blessed by Urban Meyer, who was so deep roots in Ohio. And so, and then you sort of look at it in like college basketball. You see Kentucky basketball hired an alum. North Carolina basketball hired an alum. Duke basketball hired an alum. So I think everyone's sort of recognizing that the only hope to be able to build any semblance of culture and continuity in this new NIL transactional world is you want to be able to find folks that are really, really competent. But if they have a genuine passion for the university, that's such an advantage. And I think John McKay, it goes without saying, I mean, it's absolute royalty. I mean, the McKay family is the ultimate royalty when it comes to USC football over its history. So that would be really, really huge. The one negative, the one blemish, if Sosna's sort of a 10 out of 10 candidate, why I would make John McKay maybe a 9 out of 10 candidate or even a 9.5 out of 10 candidate is, what exactly has he done with the Rams? Like he's been there since 2016. Director of Pro Scouting is a really nice title, but you've got Les Snead there. You've got McVay there. You've got really strong assistant general managers there as well. And so the only question I would have is, it's great knowledge. It's great learning. He graduated from USC in 2012 and then got the Rams job in 2016. So fairly early from undergrad, worked as a researcher with the NFL and the NFL front office in Culver City, I believe. But just, does he have kind of the chops from the 8 or 9 years with the Rams? Has he owned enough on his own, or is this maybe too big a jump right now? And maybe he needs kind of an intermediate job before he can take this job. But I think that'll all reveal itself in the interview process and the vetting process and whatnot. That would be my only question, but everything else checks out in a very significant way.
Right, Di, what do you got?
Yeah, I won't add much. I totally agree with all that. And yeah, I think the other positive I'll say, and obviously working with Les Snead, as you mentioned, but one of the big like brain trusts of the Rams, I know we've talked about him, it doesn't get talked about a lot, is Tony Pastors, who really like handles the actual contracts and makes these crazy trades and draft trades and free agent signings work with the salary cap. Like he's the Jennifer Gardner in draft day. Like when Kevin Costner's like, hey, we just traded 3 picks. Is that going to mess up the cap? That's Tony Pastors doing that. And John McKay works directly with Tony Pastors as well. So I think he brings that knowledge with him, because in reality, the biggest thing SC needs right now is contract, not just manipulation, but negotiation. Like they do not negotiate right now. Like that's been kind of their biggest problem, is when these players and agents come and say, oh, we want more. They just say, like, nope, this is the offer, take it or leave it. And so you need someone that has been in those rooms, in NFL rooms with agents, seeing those negotiations go down. And so the experience definitely question mark, we'll see, but I think the tutelage is top notch.
Yeah. If you guys were to pick a guy, just random off the top of your head, and there's 2 other guys on the article, you guys can go to the website, pick it up. If you guys were to pick a guy, who would you guys pick as a GM for SC? I have a guy in mind.
Like not of the 2 we just talked about?
No, just somebody else. One more guy that you would say who you think would be a great fit for as a GM. I have a guy in mind. It's a long shot, but I have a guy in mind. I think it will really, really work. But I'm gonna say my guy for last. I'll start with you, Ryan. Who else do you think would be a fit?
Oh man, put me on the spot. I mean, I guess I can cheat and just go off the list I made. I really like Ray Agnew. I mean, Ray Agnew with the Detroit Lions, he was with the Rams also, and then Brad Holmes brought him with him to Detroit when Brad Holmes was hired for the GM job at Detroit. So I'll just go cheat, I guess, since I made that list. But Ray Agnew's he's older. I think he's like 50, played in the NFL. I think he was a former first-round pick, so has a player pedigree, rising star. I mean, he'll probably get GM offers in the NFL, but he certainly brings wealth of knowledge, and we know what Detroit's turned into. So, and he's a part of that architect.
Who do you got, Matt, man?
Yeah, I mean, Coach, I think Sosna and Makai are 1A and 1B, and I want to put that out there. I'm going to go outside the box because I think if you want someone that's going to be able to negotiate contract, because what's the job, right? Like an NFL GM job is actually kind of very prescriptive in terms of what it needs to be. In college, we're still trying to figure out what that job is, because part of it is roster construction, part of it is contract negotiation, but part of it also has to be growing the NIL, right? Like there's got to be a fundraising element to this as well. It can't just be I'm taking the existing money and allocating it appropriately. That's part of the job, but now you got to also grow the pie as well, and then have sort of the relationship with the coaching staff and really have your pulse on football strategy. You put all that together, I'm going to give you an outside the box name, Matt Barkley. And the reason I say Matt Barkley is nobody, understands the pressure of being the face of the program the way Barkley did as a true freshman quarterback, taking, running, having to sort of be the face of the team under sanctions, scholarship reductions, and all of that. No one bleeds SC more than Matt Barkley does. So you're going to get that. But then on the competence side, Matt Barkley right now is vice president of an asset management company in Newport Beach. So when you talk about financial acumen, when you talk about understanding contracts, when you talk about business strategy, that's kind of been Matt Barkley's world the last couple of years from leaving the NFL. So when you say, hey, that core competency along with bleeding SC, if you wanted to sort of go outside the box and you couldn't get one of those first two names, Matt Barkley would be a very interesting choice.
So my choice.
I like it.
My choice is kind of out the box too. He's up for a couple of interviews. It's kind of iffy if he gets him, but if he does not get him, he's already on campus teaching a class. He's already done roster construction. He's managed the NFL team. He's one of 4 people to win both the NCAA championship and the Super Bowl. I think he could do it. He also brings the culture aspect to it. He also knows X's and O's. And like I said, he's built a roster before because he had that control in the last spot he was at. I think if Pete Carroll doesn't get the Bears job, you bring him in as your GM. You could give him a nice contract. He understands football. He understands what SC is. He wants to win. You could put him around the players. He could talk X's and O's. He could talk contract. He's very, very, very good at fundraising. He's very, very good at talking to parents. He's done the recruiting part of it before, and he's loved in LA. Why not give Pete a shot at doing this and try to help you build a roster to win? Like, he kind of gets it. If that makes sense. I know it's out there, but I think it's worth the shot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the worst he could say? No.
No, I think it's a great call, Coach. I mean, he was sort of president of football operations of Seattle. I mean, he was sort of pseudo GM and head coach. I mean, that was one of the conditions. If you guys remember way back in 2009 when he left USC, he wanted to have total control of the team from a roster standpoint as well of what he had at USC. So I think it makes a ton of sense, Coach, on paper. I just don't know if he wants to do it. I think he has so much juice left to sort of be on the sidelines and give in that way, along with all of those other things. I just don't think it's a job that he would want to do. And you can tell that, he's going to kind of teach a class and then he's out and he's ready to sort of get back into the NFL. So that to me is going to be, why it's a long shot. I just don't see him wanting to do it and get back to being the head coach. I think the last thing to sort of think about here, guys, is what is the perception of a college football GM going to be relative to an NFL GM? And I think that's going to be kind of an interesting interplay. I know we've been talking a lot about NFL guys, and Ryan had such a comprehensive list of guys in the NFL. And I know there's been a lot of chatter about that of, you want it to be sort of more of an NFL style, type of operation. But think about the discrepancy between a college coach and an NFL coach, right? We're starting to sort of get away from the model of college coaches going to the NFL to become head coaches. Like there's sort of an acknowledgement that these are two very separate sports that require two very separate skill sets. We've sort of gotten burned in the past with great college coaches trying to go to the NFL and it doesn't work. Pete, of course, being a unicorn exception there, coach. And I wonder, is that going to be the same with GMs? Like, are guys that are assistant GMs or up and coming, high risers in the NFL circles, are they going to think of a college job as something that's going to be additive to their resume to where they want to go? Or are they going to feel like, look, I got to stay in the NFL if I want to ultimately get these top jobs in the NFL? So I think that interplay between college and pro is going to be really interesting because, again, I go back to it. At the end of the day, these NFL franchises are multi-billion-dollar corporations, $250 million, $300 million salary caps. The biggest college team right now is $40 million. And so there's a big difference between managing $40 million and managing $250 and $300 million. Go ask anybody on Wall Street. So I wonder just how that dynamic is going to shake out. And we're all learning it together because the college GM is something relatively new. But I wonder if the GM is going to follow kind of a similar path. Like if you're an NFL guy, you're an NFL guy and you climb those ranks. And if you're somebody from college, you're a college lifer. So it'll be interesting to see if that barrier gets broken potentially with this hire.
Yeah, I think it's kind of that one has to play out. We gotta let that one cook a little bit more because we gotta be able to see where this is so fresh. You know what I mean? Like we still have to figure it out and see where that goes from there.
Well, we haven't really seen yet. Like I think USC needs to hire an NFL mind for this, but we haven't really seen across college football like an NFL guy go to college outside of Bill Belichick hiring one who was a fired former NFL GM who was just writing media content. So it's like we have yet to see a team like, oh yeah, they just hired the director of pro scouting from whatever team. So maybe USC can be the trailblazer in this and get the first assistant GM to come over. But it's a great point.
As long as it's not Trent Baalke. If it's not, it's because Trent Baalke, I don't know how that dude still.
Apparently, he's not getting fired. So
yeah, I don't. Trent Baalke's the guy you see walking through your door, your facility. You call your agent like, "Hey, you got to get me out of here. We are not going to be successful."
Because Ryan, that's the interesting part. Like, what is the job, right? Like, are you truly the football mind? Like, an NFL GM is like roster construction in a very deep way. But is this job that, or is this job just look? The head coach is still, has certain players that he wants, has a vision for the team, and I'm just the contracts guy. I'm just the finance guy. I'm just a fundraiser versus no, I'm actually the one who's the top person doing roster construction, right? So that's where it gets very interesting in terms of the interplay with the head coach. If it's just the contracts guy and just the finance guy, you actually don't need NFL experience for that, right? Like you just need contracts and finance experience if the roster construction piece is still being held by the head coach. So the responsibility, accountability, or authority, the RAA of this job is going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
I would imagine it will start because every big school with money has a scouting department now. So I would imagine that they will at least work directly with scouting, and then they probably get the move made from there. They get the okay from the coach, and then they go and make that move. I would imagine. Like, they get to say, okay, yeah, let's bring him to the coach. And then they bring him to the coach. Like, yeah, we like him. All right, let's make the move from there. That's just my assumption. Like I said, I don't know how it works. Yeah. I would love to learn, but I don't know how it works.
Well, it's so interesting, too, because then we can wrap this up. But, I mean, because that can even be said on a team-by-team basis in the NFL, too, because you have some coaches that are heavily involved in scouting or what. Like, I remember I talked to – obviously everyone, or at least you guys, I don't know if everyone knows, but I'm an actual Denver Bronco fan. And I remember talking to reporters that cover the team out there and some buddies I know. And, when George Payton, the GM, was hired, and it was before the new ownership and obviously before Sean Payton, like he took on this whole role of GM of running everything, like running the scouting department, running this. As soon as he hired Sean Payton, like he was able to get back to his roots of just being kind of more of a scouter. And Sean, the coach, would say like, hey, this is what I need. Go find it for me. This is what, and then handle this. And then he has another guy that handles contracts. So it works even in the NFL too. So it's kind of finding that with college, it'll be more like that. Like Lincoln Riley is going to be the guy, like, I need this, Go make the money work. And I think that's all college coaches because they're so used to recruiting and running everything. So it's more like, make this happen. Like we need this player on our team. Go make it happen.
Yeah.
That's what they need. Whereas right now,
that's such a good point, right? I mean, like, think about the model, right? I mean, Ohio State just paid $30+ million for their roster last year. They didn't have an NFL guy. They're doing just fine, So like you don't necessarily need the NFL guy. So it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting to see because sometimes does getting the NFL guy, and then we'll wrap up, will it backfire? Because if you're used to a certain level of ownership in terms of your job at the NFL level, and then you come down to college and the head coach is still kind of calling all the shots and you're just in this sort of functional siloed role, like, is that going to create more tension and more politics and more challenges inside your football program than before? So is it additive or is it subtractive? It's all going to be really interesting to see how it unfolds.
I think it's the best guy for the right situation and make it all work together. That's called chemistry. Just like the woman or man you love in your life. There you go. Good deal. Hey, guys, I appreciate you guys. We put a good one together. I'm happy to get the tripod back. Hopefully we get more of the tripod. It's the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast. It's really fun. Go to betonline.ag. Get some money for your summer vacation. We made it through Christmas, so if you got to recoup your credit card bills, go and do that. If you want to go on vacation, Ryan's probably going on 4 vacations this year, so if you want to be like Ryan and go on 4 vacations this year, do that. Go ahead and do that. Don't shake your head. You go on about 4 every year. Do you not, Ryan? You do.
I don't know.
Camping is considered vacation.
Okay, then yeah. Camping,
okay.
For sure, yeah.
Mexico?
Yeah, we did like one big vacation last year. Which was
but
Mexico.
You also went somewhere else last year, too. Randomly. You was like, we just got in the car and went.
Colorado to see my family.
Oh, there you go. There's still vacation.
Coach is riding Ryan hard on these vacations.
It is vacation. Man. I don't consider it just like visiting my family.
I got you.
Guess, but.
No, good deal, though. Hey, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all you friends. Till next time, guys, you guys know how it goes. Live free. Fight on.